voice of sharing, 旅人ASEAN.
Hi, this is Arlene.
And this is Gowri. We're moving on to our Blast from the Grassroots session for this morning.
Oh, yeah, and what's the topic today?
Today we will be analyzing the National Sedition Act from the 1948, and because it's going to be repealed by a National Harmony Bill, we're going to be probably deconstructing both to see its pros and cons, and how the new bill is probably going to affect the harmony of this country.
Yeah, that's true. And talking about the creation of these bills, I think we need to sit back and then like sort of understand the background of this country. As we all know, Malaysia is a multiracial and multicultural nation. There's a lot of race and religion. Although there's some sort of stereotype of the race that there's only a few categories like Malay, Chinese, Indian, and dan lain-lain, which it means others. But in reality, we are actually very much multicultural and multi-religious.
Yeah, and also we are a multiracial country, but over the years we've had a lot of problems, but we managed to deal with it. The government came up with a few policies to help curb the problem, like when we had the May 13 riots, which we'll be discussing later on, and also some other minor religious misunderstandings and all, but I guess but we've managed to overcome that, and now we are moving on to the National Harmony Act, which a lot of people are happy that the Sedition Act is going to be repealed, but there are also some parties who are actually opposing that. They think that the Sedition Act is actually necessary for this country.
I see, that's interesting. I think one of the biggest opponent for the National Harmony Act would be Tun Dr. Mahathir himself, which is the former Prime Minister of Malaysia.
Yeah, and just to give a little background on the Sedition Act, maybe the Sedition Act in Malaysia is a law prohibiting discourse, any discourse deemed as seditious, and it was actually enacted by the British when they were in Malaysia in 1948. And what goes under this act is any speech that has seditious tendency, which would bring hatred, contempt, or to quote, excite disaffection against the government, or endanger feelings or ill will or hostility between the different races in Malaysia. So any such statement or anyone implying such things will be charged under the Sedition Act.
Yeah, so I just want to give a much more deeper understanding of what it means by seditious tendency, because in front of me is a paper which is the Sedition Act 1948. It is so one of it is it describes what is a seditious tendency, and number 3A is to bring into hatred or contempt or to excite disaffection against any ruler or against any government. And second, 3B is to excite the subjects of any ruler or the inhabitants of any territory governed by any government to attempt to procure in the territory of the ruler or governed by the government the alteration otherwise than by lawful means of any matter as by law established. And 3C is to bring into hatred or contempt or to excite disaffection against the administration of justice in Malaysia or in any state. 3B, to raise discontent or disaffection amongst the subjects of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong or the ruler of any state or amongst the inhabitants of Malaysia or of any state. And 3B is to promote feelings of ill will and hostility between different races or classes of the population in Malaysia. And 3F is to question any matter, right, status, position, privilege, sovereignty, or prerogative established or protected by the provisions of Part 3 of the Federation Constitution, or Article 152, 153, or 181 of the Federal Constitution.
Wow, that's quite a bit of information you gave to our listeners.
Yeah, I think people should understand that when people talk about what is seditious, it is not just about, when it comes to you saying something that is hateful, or it's not just about hateful speech between people. It's also about the rulers, the government, and the whole other framework of our today's constitution and society.
So it seems that after the British left, the law was still allowed to be a part of our country's legal system, and it was also allowed in the constitution, but it wasn't actually made use of that much until the May 13 incident took place in KL, which caused nearly 200 deaths. And then the government decided that they should amend the constitution and also expand the scope of the limitations on speech freedom. And that's when they really worked it out and also amended, I guess, the Constitution Act 1971. And like what you mentioned just now, 152, 153, 181. And it also became applicable to all the citizens in Malaysia, of course. And with this new power, the parliament then amended the Sedition Act accordingly, and these new restrictions also applied to members of parliament, overruling their parliamentary immunity in that sense. So all these MPs can also be charged with the Sedition Act.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, I think we need to understand the context why there's a Sedition Act in the past, and especially it was created in 1948. But why it should not be that relevant now? I think the context in the past is it was during the colonial time, and there's a changing of power between there was somehow a changing of power between the British government as well towards the new government regime, which is a monarchy, which is a monarch constitution. In a way that I think that the focus is to gain legitimacy towards the monarchy as well as towards the government at that time.
I totally agree with you when you said that this act is probably not relevant anymore because this happened in 1948, and that is way before we had our independence in Malaysia, of course, and that was in 1957. And also to still they probably amended it with good intentions. They probably did it in the best interest of the people in the country. But I still think that they could have came up with something a little less austere in that sense, because when you are charged by the Sedition Act, you get sentenced to up to 3 years in jail and 5,000 ringgit in fine. And I think they should probably come up with something better, or probably a more relevant act, which is also what we'll be discussing today, the National Harmony Bill.
Yeah, that's true. So, when it comes to the Seditious Act, I realized that we do need a National Harmony and Reconciliation Bill. And in front of me right now is the drafted bill. I guess, the aim of the bill is relating to the promotion of national harmony and reconciliation in Malaysia, and to prevent unfair discrimination of persons based on religion, race, descent, place of birth, gender, or disability, and to provide for related matters.
So in here I also have probably like 7 facts you need to know about the sedition law. Maybe I can quickly run through it. So the first one is, of course, the Sedition Act is a restraining law. It tells you what not to do, and it's an archaic law under the British rule when they were in Malaya back then. And number 3, it applies to any act, speech, words, or publications even. And what considered to be seditious is actually very wide, like what you went through just now. And the next one is, if someone is found to violate it, like I mentioned, you get 3 years in jail, 5,000 in fine. Or if it's a lesser sentence, you get a fine of 2,000 ringgit. And the wideness of this provision plus the interpretation of the courts has also led to the Sedition Act to become very vague. And I think one of the example given here was when it was used to prosecute Lim Guan Eng, who's the chief minister of Penang, for criticizing the attorney general over a rape case to raid the online news portal. And finally, the prime minister has spoken of repealing the Sedition Act, and he said he is planning to replace it with the National Harmony Act, which will emphasize the nurturing of the spirit of harmony and mutual respect among Malaysians.
Yeah, I think one of the area about the Sedition Act is prone to abuse in a way for political gain of the ruling party.
But what's interesting, also one of our ex-prime minister is totally against.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
he's totally against of it. But I think we should definitely talk about the National Harmony Act, and I just want to just give a bit of the background about the National
Yeah, sure.
Harmony Act. It was created during by the NUCC, the National Unity Consultative Council, and the reason why NUCC started this because it aims to create a form of harmony in the peace and harmony in this country by consulting everyone what it means to be Malaysian and what it means to have peace and harmony in this country. So they went on a national tour all over the country, consulting with different sectors, different people, and even with the public itself. So it had a few public engagement with society, and it also had a few civil society closed door engagement. It also engaged with the government and with a few other people from different sectors. So it came up with this national harmony bills, and the bills consist of 3 different areas. Maybe you want to explain more? The 3 different areas of the bill.
Yeah, so it seems that the first part is actually
Oh yeah. So anyway,
yeah, I think you should do it.
yeah, better I do it. So it came up with 3 different bills, and this bill is the Race and Religion Hatred Crime Bills, the National Harmony and Reconciliation Bill, and the National Harmony and Reconciliation Commission Bill. But it hasn't been tabled yet to the Parliament, and the thing is, what it was. The recent story is that people perceive that the National Harmony Act draft bill has been prepared and will be presented, but actually that's not true. In fact, the minister in the Prime Minister Department, Nancy Shukri, said that it hasn't been finalized yet, and they are still in the process of consulting stakeholders.
And also, like I think we reported yesterday that it's still an idea. It's a working idea. They haven't probably drafted the contents of it yet, and they are slowly taking their time with it, because it also says here that rushing the bill will probably not result in the best interest of the country. They want to really take time working the contents, make sure that it is, of course, that it does not conflict our constitution. It has to go in line with it.
Although in July 11, 2012, Prime Minister Datuk Sri Najib Razak has indicated that the government intentions to repeal the Sedition Act 1948 and replace it with a new act, which is the National Harmony Act.
So I just want to give a little comment maybe from our famous Tun Dr. M about the Sedition Act. So he said that the repeal of the Sedition Act could result in people calling even for the dismantling of the royal institution, and also for the amendment of institution. And he said the extremists would then be free to criticize our constitution, our king, our monarchy. I don't know why they use the word monarchy here. And even demand that the royal institution be dismantled, and that there is no law that can stop them. So I guess in his opinion, he sees the Sedition Act as also a way to protect this whole probably the Islamic institution in the country, where we have the king as a symbol.
Do you believe it is true? I don't think so, in a way, because we already know the monarchy is protected under the constitution, with or without the Sedition Act, in a way.
Well, you have to tell Dr. M that.
I mean, I want to just give a brief just introduction of why they created this harmony bill. And the objective is to give effect to the letter and spirit of the federal constitution, in particularly at Article 8, to provide measures to facilitate the eradication of unfair discrimination, particularly on the grounds of religion, belief, race, descent, place of birth, gender, and disability, to provide procedures for the determination of circumstances under the discrimination under which discrimination is unfair, to provide measures to educate the public and raise public awareness on the importance of promoting equality and overcoming unfair discrimination, to provide remedies to victims of unfair discrimination and persons whose right to equality has been infringed, and to set out measures to advance persons disadvantaged by unfair discrimination. And nothing in the Act derogates from the provisions of Article 153 of the Constitution. So in a way that I think it didn't really touch on the royal family or the monarchy. I think in a way that the main focus of the National Harmony Act to ensure there's stability and peace and harmony in this country, which I think is really important, especially with the strings of hatred and racial issues that happen. I think we should name a few of what happened. For example, the cow head issue, where a group of extremist right-wing Muslims protested against the building of a Hindu temple in Shah Alam.
And also I have a few more examples here in the past when the Sedition Act was employed. And the famous one, I guess, is in 2000, Marina Yusof, who is a former vice president of the National Justice Party, or Parti Keadilan, who was charged with sedition for saying that the UMNO, who is the leading party, had provoked the massacres of the Chinese in the May 13. So when she said that, they actually charged her under the Sedition Act. And then they also charged, of course, Anwar Ibrahim. I think that's probably the most famous example in Malaysia, when he was still the deputy prime minister under Tun Dr. Mahathir, and also Karpal Singh from DAP Penang, who was charged with sedition after claiming that Anwar had been poisoned by people in high places. And also Lim Guan Eng, who is currently the chief minister in Penang, was also found guilty of sedition for accusing the attorney general for failing to properly handle a case where the chief minister of Malacca was charged with statutory rape.
So you realize that majority of the cases that is being charged under the Sedition Act is definitely cases that are politically motivated.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think the focus should be focusing more on issues that actually could enhance the racial hatred among different ethnic groups. And besides that, I think there are a few other examples that I can think of from my mind besides the cow head issue. I think the right-wing Malay groups like Perkasa and Pekida, as well as ISMA, sometimes they can really spew really racist slurs towards different ethnic groups and different religious groups.
And you know what's interesting about all those people you mentioned? They are also against the repeal of the Sedition Act.
Oh, they do?
So they actually indirectly justified what you just said, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Sedition Act has a different focus in a different context, which is relevant at that context, I think. Because I think in a way, when you want to build a country, you want to ensure that the ruling government is legitimately being recognized by the people, as well as the monarchy as well. But I think the focus right now is not so much on monarchy. It's more, or the ruling government is more like ensuring there's a greater peace and harmony in this country.
And another thing that Dr. M said was also that there is a possibility that the moment you repeal the Sedition Act, there will be an unrest in the country, because then nobody will be afraid anymore to speak up and say whatever they want. And this will affect the liberalism that they are pushing for now. And he also criticized the three new bills, which is the National Harmony Bill, the National Unity Bill, and the National Unity and Integration Commission Bill, which you explained earlier, and saying that they would cause inequality among Malaysia's three major ethnic communities.
Oh wow! I would love to know how it happens.
And he also mentioned something about how passing these new bills will erase all the efforts made through the new economic policy, which of course came up after the May 13 incident. And he also said that the new laws would end discrimination based on ethnicity and introduce the principle of meritocracy, and that kind of defeats the purpose of the NEP. But then again, if the NEP is irrelevant anymore, probably it's not a problem if it's not gonna be in use anymore.
That's true. What about the views of non-Muslim and people who are much more liberal in this country? I think they welcome the bill?
Actually, there's been a lot of human rights organizations, according to this article that I have here, who, of course, who are against the Sedition Act, and some of them even call it excessively vague. Even through all that contents that we went through just now, it's very hard to be specific about what really is, because I probably won't be too specific about this, but we have Muslims and non-Muslims in this country, and I'm talking about politicians here. And there's a lot, of course, there were non-Muslim politicians who also said probably seditious remark. I don't know if you can call them seditious, who, like Ryer, who said Celaka UMNO and all that. But I also must add that the Muslim politicians have also said a ton of stuff about the non-Muslims, but nothing is being done about that. So how do they properly define what remarks are seditious and what remarks are not, and how do they draw the line there to identify?
That's true. But when it comes to the National Harmony Bill, it's actually, as I mentioned earlier, is being prepared by NUCC, National Unity Consultative Council. And what's unique about this council is it's well represented by all different parties, including the government, the civil society, as well as opposition parties. For example, Datuk Dr. Mujahid Rawa and Lim Chi Wee. So in a sense, I think we can definitely get a much more neutral and well-represented bill for this National Harmony Bill.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. Hopefully with the National Harmony Bill, they are a lot more specific with the contents, and properly draw out the guidelines that so it's not vague, and it's clear to probably lawyers and even to civil society about what remarks are acceptable, or what is crossing the line, and what will cause a disruption in the country.
In fact, Dr. Mujahid and Lim also said that he believed NUCC and the bill itself would enhance unity and eliminate hate crimes against any race and religion, so essential to maintaining peace and harmony. So I think with this Harmony Bill, no one, not even politician, can say that, hey, your race is less than my race, or my race has more privilege than your race.
Yeah, and also I think with any bill at all, especially with this one, it's definitely worth giving it a try. And it's not fair to just say that, once you repeal the Sedition Act, the country is going to go into chaos, and people are going to start killing each other and having riots in the street. I think that at the end of the day, we all want to live in a peaceful Malaysia, and nobody wants to, cause riots and have bloodshed everywhere.
Like the incident of May 13, 1969 in the past. I don't think it would happen at this time, but we hope that with the National Harmony Bill, it will sort of strengthen the national unity of this country. But just to give a brief introduction of what the current happenings of this bill is, it's in its final draft, and it will be submitted to the Attorney General Chamber for scrutiny and fine-tuning. So after negotiation and engagement were completed, it will add a few more things before it will be brought up. A few more, I guess, acts or I don't know what else, before it will be brought up to the cabinet and approved and be tabled by the in front of the parliament.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think that's all the time that we have for today. We've reached the end of our segment for Blast from the Grassroots.
Oh yeah, definitely. As usual, stay tuned to us live at durianasian.com, or you can download your TuneIn app via your mobile and listen to us anywhere.
And also coming up in our ABC Dialogue, we have a very, very special guest today. You want to tell us a little bit about him?
Oh, he's a professor. He's a German Muslim who has a Protestant Jewish identity, and he will be sharing with us more about Islam, as he's a professor of Islam and education in an Islamic university in Germany.
Yeah, that sounds like it's going to be a very exciting discussion. So stay tuned with us and don't miss it.
Stay tuned. Bye.